Hello, and welcome to the Hobo Show, the first episode of the Hobo Show. I'm Choosh99, also known as George. I'm your host. I'm also the only member of the show, so that's kind of an automatic thing. The reason I'm calling this the Hobo Show is because, for those that don't know, and I don't mind sharing my private life because it's kind of open on Facebook, I'm a veteran who temporarily became homeless because we got evicted, me and my girlfriend and our dog. We got evicted because the landlord didn't want to pay for mold removal and all this other stuff. So the VA helped me temporarily. I'm here in Augusta, Maine, staying at a veteran shelter because I couldn't find a place quick enough, and I was forced to leave my job because I couldn't be in the area and for other reasons. And basically, I'm in the middle. I'm very close to hopefully finding a place to live and getting things back on track. But until then, I'm kind of a hobo. So someone joked around I should call any shows I do the Hobo Show. So why not, right? Anyways, this is my first technical episode of the Hobo Show, and we'll call this, Hobo Show Episode 1. So I'm going to review very briefly my opinion thus far, and I'll share this on the group, of the Orville, with produced by and starring Seth MacFarlane. This is live stream, so if I burp or anything, I apologize. I don't have time to edit. I'm on an Android. I'm going to show you real quick. This is just a graveyard in Augusta, Maine that I'm kind of hanging out in. It's not bad out tonight, and I'm just hanging out doing my stream. So, without further ado, what do I think of the Orville? I think it's great. I think the Orville is the best thing that could have happened to science fiction, not just Star Trek. I think it's the best thing that could have happened to the whole genre, because what basically has happened is, at the same time that Orville came out, Star Trek Discovery came out. Well, pretty close to one another. So, for the first time in like 12 years almost, fans who've been waiting and waiting and waiting for an actual return for Star Trek to TV got hit with more than one thing. They got hit with a new vision of Star Trek, which I always suspected would happen, because I figured if for a new age they're going to do a modern twist on Star Trek, so they weren't just going to do a retread of the same production style that we got with Next Generation, Enterprise, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. They were going to try something totally new in lieu of the way that they do things on Netflix and shows that are streaming. They have a new format that they can do and play around with. Things are changing out there. They don't do 20-something episodes necessarily. Some networks like Fox can still do like 20-something episode shows, but for the actors to do a 13 or 6 episode called a series, it makes them less burnt out, and they can do other projects and movies, and they can still keep doing the show longer and have more than possibly the amount of seasons that we've had before without the actors feeling burnt out. So there's a reason why television's changing. Our attention span as an audience is changing, and with the on-demand streaming thing, although it's not quite on-demand with CBS All Access, that's another subject. And the controversy behind the pay model, we get a new Star Trek, but we're talking about the Orville. Now, before I sidetrack, the Orville is everything I wanted it to be, but it was, what I like about the Orville the most is it wasn't what I expected it to be. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of fans are going to agree with me on that. Seth MacFarlane was a huge fan of The Next Generation, and he wanted to pay homage. He did that on Family Guy. He was excited to get Patrick Stewart and the rest of the crew on an episode, and he wanted to tell his version of Star Trek. And a lot of people were expecting a Galaxy Quest type show, and that wasn't what we got. We got something better, and I love that. It was better than what we expected, because he started off where the jokes, the tongue-in-cheek gags, and the humor is there, but then we get the tone changes with each episode. Sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's been dark, but it has that overall flair that The Next Generation has always had. And my favorite episode to date is the one called Krill, and I think it's episode 5 or 6. I think it's 6. Could be 5. I could be wrong. But I like that episode because the captain and the one of the Helms officers, his buddy there, Lamar? No, not Lamar. Well, maybe it is. I can't remember his name. But they disguise themselves as their version of the Klingons, and they go to sneak onto a destroyer to find out more about them. And so much happens in that episode that we didn't expect. And by the end of it, they do the usual moral dilemma thing in a realistic and very serious way, which you don't expect. And the first time they did that tone shift was in episode 3, I think it was. The one where the character Bortus's child was female, and it was about the gender swap thing. And it was supposed to, and they were all male. Their race, the Lachlan's, I think they're called. They were supposed to be all male, so they had a deviant child that was born female. So it created an issue where there was a moral thing where the captain insisted that you can't do that, forced sex change on the baby. The doctor wouldn't perform the surgery. It was based on real life issues that have happened and moral decisions. And that was the first time they did that tone shift. And everybody was shocked, and it caused all these internet reviews and people to be like very surprised. The first 2 episodes where people were, okay, this is what the Orville is going to be like, and then boom, they suddenly changed gears. And from that point on, you did not know what to expect from the Orville. One episode could be hilarious, well, funny, parody, tongue-in-cheek, but yet the next one could be, they could have moral messages, which is what Star Trek does best, is to take a sci-fi setting and give you that moral, modern-day thing. The next episode that actually delivered a modern message in such a way that really hit home was the last one they did, called The Majority Rules, which was about the social media. Now, I did a short story. I do a Star Trek Starfinder. I produced a series called I changed it to Starfinder after the whole CBS legal thing. So that is Starfinder, a Star Trek fan production. And basically, in my series, not too long ago, I wrote a short story, and it had the same idea where you take a world which has social media and how it influences that world when they get visited by an alien race, which was Starfinder in the Federation. It reminded me of the story that I did, but I'm not saying this like I'm special. I think a lot of good ideas come out of contemporary situations, and Orville is just in a situation where they did that, and they did it very, very well. And I was really impressed with the way that the Orville handled that episode. They did not do it perfectly, and I think that it's fair to say that no show is going to do it perfectly. But they did a darn good attempt. They tried to address the whole, public opinion being what basically, the way social media works is it's almost an anti-socialism, because the public opinion is control in this world that they visited, controls everything. Arbitrary decisions, like instead of a court, instead of all this other stuff, you have, it's almost like it's like a jury of the entire population deciding, this is the evidence. How can you argue the evidence? This is what our cameras are picking up, and society is based on that. Well, it's very similar in analogy to what we're doing in real life with our Twitters and everything else, to judge people and situations based on what we think we're seeing, and comparing that in contrast to social acceptances and moral majority. So Orville's doing a good thing. Seth MacFarlane should be applauded for wanting to do this. If I had any negatives to say about the Orville, I really don't have a lot. I even thought, okay, if the only thing that they did that they need to stop doing is the whole slut shaming of the first officer. The whole, yes, she messed up, she cheated on her husband, we get it, it was done to death. Adrienne Poliski, I think that's her name, the actress, has done an outstanding job of playing Kelly Grayson, the first officer and ex-wife of Seth MacFarlane's captain. And I think that she is a character that needs to get more screen time. I think that she's the heart of the show, and that she supports the captain because she still loves him. And at first I resisted the whole trope of, will they get back together? And I thought, come on, that's so cliche. It's obvious they're going to get back together because they still have feelings for one another. At this point in the series, I find it very interesting that they were able to make us wonder, are they going to follow an established trope, or are they going to actually make us be surprised? I think we might be surprised. They may not get back together. But even it could also be like Troy and Riker, where they spend 7 years dancing around that until they finally get married again. You know, or in this, I'm not saying Riker and Troy were married, but you know what I mean. So they spent 7 years, will they, won't they, until finally they did, for good. But hopefully on Orville, they're going to approach it a little differently. They also approached the whole time travel thing with the episode Priya, with guest Charlize Theron, in a way I wasn't expecting. I think the whole twist that she turned out to be from the future, that was actually well done. And the combat, the space battles, the whole world building that they're doing, it's based on a similar world of Star Trek, but yet it's not, because they haven't clearly established that they have a prime directive. I also like the way they do their space battles, and I like the way that, okay, a lot of people are arguing like this is an incompetent crew, but they're not supposed to be alive anymore. After the episode Priya, anything can happen, and their whole crew's existence is defying what time said is supposed to happen, because they were supposed to be destroyed. So we'll have to see how they plan out and pan out the whole thing about that. I kind of hope that they find a way around Charlize Theron's character forgetting and unexisting from meeting them in a way for the time travel thing, so she could be a reoccurring sort of Harry Mudd type Q-like character, because she did a good job as far as being the character that she played. I like what they did there. So, anyways, the Orville has a lot of potential, and I really hope that people will stop comparing it with Discovery. It's a completely different show. It's not meant to be compared. You got Discovery for Star Trek's next incarnation. It's like having Doctor Who and a spin-off parody of Doctor Who at the same time. You can still enjoy a show that is the actual show, and still enjoy a show that's an homage to the show, and also has its own identity. That's probably the only big obstacle that Orville, I think by season 2 or 3, what Orville needs to try to do is break away from being under the shadow of they're trying to be the homage of Star Trek and saying, we're creating our own world, and it's going to branch off and do our own thing, and we've made our own universe, our own aliens. For as many similarities to Star Trek as it has, I think it has the potential to break off and create its own universe, to where someday in 10 years people are going to make role-playing games about the Orville universe. They're going to make fan films about the Orville universe, probably in the next 2 years actually for that, and so on, without actually having to worry about people going, is that Star Trek or Orville? I mean, because for example, what would you call a spin-off for the Orville if you made it a show in that universe? Because the Orville's the name of the ship, right? The original Star Trek wasn't called Enterprise. So, I mean, the original ship was, but that's retcon. So what would you call an Orville? In my opinion, you wouldn't say Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Orville, whatever the next ship is. You would simply call it whatever the show is, and it happens to take place in the Orville thing. But the biggest mistake they made was they didn't brand it. They didn't brand it so that it has its own identity, so that you can stick on like CSI this Miami, CSI New York, you know what I mean? Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Discovery. Orville is the first of this universe, but it doesn't have a brand. So it would be hard for them to say, like if we made another show on a space station, the Blues Brothers space station set in the universe of Orville or something, I don't know. They're going to have to figure that out. I think the only way they can do that now is you simply give it a title, and it happens to take place in that universe. But you can't brand it. And that could be a problem. Or maybe they don't care. I don't know. All I can say is I'm a fan, and I hope that everybody gives it a chance to do its thing, and I hope Fox breaks their tradition of canceling good shows like Firefly and Birds of Prey and a lot of other shows out there, and they allow Seth MacFarlane, who has a lot of clout with Fox, so that gives me hope, to push on and push forward and see how far. If they get at least 3 seasons, then we can have a lot to look back on, and they can still make another show later in that universe. It doesn't even have to be set by Fox. You know, you could be on Netflix, and it could be set in the Orville universe, and Seth could guest star as Captain Mercer. So give it 2 or 3 seasons, and you could establish a universe without relying on Fox to carry it if they decide to peter out. Do you know what I'm saying? I think you guys do. Anyways, peace out, people. That's my review. Hobo review.